Good morning, it's Frugal here. As always, I have my coffee because otherwise somebody might just get killed. So today, let's talk about sectional title and when somebody owns a majority share or a majority of the sections in a sectional title scheme. And well, what's your options and what happens and how did it happen and all of that. So we know that sectional title is basically you own a section of the land, right? So if you have a block of flats, you own a section of that. You don't own the physical land, you own a section in that. So this is governed obviously by the law, by the Sectional Title Schemes Act and other very big words which we don't understand. But the important part here that you need to know is that you have a right to say something. Okay, you can say, listen, I'm not happy with the decision that's being made. Now, I encourage people to go to the AGM, that is the annual general meeting, where you can discuss things about the sectional title scheme, how the finances are doing, how the security is going, how the maintenance is going, and how the overall governance is going of the sectional title property. Now, what happens by times is that, we get things like a lot of people actually buy into a sectional title scheme and, well, there's one big person. And oftentimes that's a developer. I've seen a couple of cases like that where there's a developer that owns the majority share in a block. So generally, if it's 75% of the shares that they own, what happens is that they can literally just, run over people and just make decisions on just walk over people. Now, how that would work is that they would call a special meeting about they want a ratification of what they call the house rules. Now, the house rules governs what you can and can't do. So, now, the house rules can say things like, for example, things like, are you able to do short-term leasing? Or what you can and can't do in your property? Can you keep animals or not? What is the cost with regards to if there's facilities that other people would want to use in the sectional title scheme? That would be something like at the Blyde Riverwalk, where they've got a beach area, and the sectional titles house rules would then say these people would need to do this or that. It also governs things like noise levels and just good conduct in a property. Now, well, in the whole sectional title scheme, right? So noise levels, like I said, how do you handle rubbish removal? For example, in one of the blocks I've seen, they've actually got a clause to say that every Monday you need to put out, or every day that you have rubble removal, put your rubbish outside of your flat and somebody will actually come and collect it for you, which is quite nice. But now, this on the one side, right, you've got the house rules that governs how things work. On the other side, how do we decide on this? Now, what happens is that we've got all the owners, right, and that might be the developer, which owns a majority share, as well as the other owners, which also owns a share or a section in the Sectional Title Act. And depending on the percentage, which is generally worked out and calculated according to flat size, as well as like the area and what they own in there. So for example, if somebody owns a flat which is 100 square meters and somebody owns a flat that has 50 square meters, they have a different section, so they'll pay different levies. But each owner then has a vote, and that vote will then basically say how much what you can and can't do, right? So and with this vote at the AGM, you can then go and say, okay, listen, we want to give direction to the block to say this is what we want and this is what we don't want. Now, these directives, is what they call them, and exclusions, is what then will say and govern what the trustees can and can't do. So what is a trustee? Well, a trustee then gets to decide, and they need to act in the best interest of the block, the day-to-day operations and deflect their authority which the owners gave them to do what they need to do. So for example, that would be things like, listen, we need stationery, and they give the people the authority to buy the stationery. They approve quotes for maintenance work that needs to get done. They need to give the direction of the block. They need to also say, this is what we suggest on the levies. They need to know what the budget is, how the budget is calculated, and how do you project what the next year's budget should be. They should also understand about things like the contingency plan and the contingency 10-year maintenance plan, and how much money we require each year for that, and how that is legally governed. So if you don't know that, and you want to be a member of on the board of trustees, it's okay. Don't worry about that. They will help you. There's normally a managing agent that helps you. If the block is self-managed, that's also okay. They will guide you on that. Now, so we know now about the house rules. We know about the trustees. So the trustees, normally 3, 5, 7 is a good number, specifically because then they can vote and they can have a majority about the voting with regards to the day-to-day operations. So if this does happen, what would then go is, they'll just continue business as usual. But by times there's things that they cannot change, such as if they want to make some serious betterment of the block, they need to get the owners to agree on that. So they would call a special meeting for that. And what that would be for things like, for example, if a trustee is not pulling their weight and they're actually holding the block back, then we call for a special meeting to actually get the trustee off the board. It would be for something like they want to change the house rules. They want to change a very big part of how something works. Then a special meeting for all the owners. And then what would need to happen is for all the owners, they need to then agree and vote for that change. So if they vote that, and if somebody's got a majority shareholding, they can outvote the rest. Now, it's very similar to a democracy. When you've got all of these people will then say, listen, we're putting our votes down, and this is who we want in power, and this is what the decision that we have to take. And if you can get a majority, like I said, for house rules, I believe it's 75%, then what will happen is that those rules will be changed. So, this is what's happened at the Blyde, right? So the Blyde Riverwalk in Pretoria, there is a big lagoon, a man-made lagoon, and there's a couple of people that own some of the flats from the Balwin Estate. And what happened is that Balwin, owning a majority share, decided to make some big decisions. The Board of Trustees made decisions on things like, for example, the fiber provider, which is governed by the trustees, and they need to make decisions on that. They also need to make decisions on who does the maintenance. Now, if the trustees decide that that is going to be done by person X, then that is the way that it is. Now, what happened is that they called a special meeting to say that they are going to increase the day fees for people that would want to visit the lagoon to 250 Rand per person. They also decided that they are going to build a big hotel, which is probably okay because they still own that land. And also, they decided that any short-term leasing for all owners will be banned. So they did a special meeting, they've got the majority vote, and they voted them out. So basically, in that case, they did legally ran over all of the owners. Legally. Am I saying this is ethical? No. Do I think that this was the right thing to do? Absolutely not. Do I think that it is going to be problematic in the future for Balwin as well as for the owners? I believe so. And I'd like to give my opinion, because we know now that legally they've done the right thing, but ethically they have not. So in the context of what I've said, right, there's a couple of things that I'd like to make you aware of. Number one, Balwin is going to have problems selling the rest of the units in the Blyde estate, because they have shown that they will steamroller any owner to get what they want. Number two, I think this is going to impact their finances greatly, and also the finances of the Blyde Riverwalk Sectional title scheme. So how do I think it's going to do that? Well, Balwin isn't getting a lot of income because they can't sell the places, so they're going to have to pay a lot of money for that. And because a lot of people oftentimes mean that you can actually get a lot more money, and they, you split the risk a little bit more, it is going to be a problem for them. Number 3, I think the Blyde is not necessarily a good investment in my opinion, for the reason that a man-made lagoon like that has got a lot of money that it needs. Now, for the levies that they're paying currently between 2,000 and 4,000 Rand, which has been doubled recently, I believe it's going to double in the next 2 years again, for the simple reason that a lagoon like that is not a cheap thing. When that thing breaks, it is going to be a lot of money. It's not going to be a little bit. When that thing goes green, when there's an algae infection, there's going to be a lot of money that needs to be spent. So even though it's new at the moment and the levies are fairly low, I really think that the owners and Balwin as well is going to pay a lot more money than they actually think. Again, this is just from my experience and my opinion. I think as well that the property, that's number 4, that the property prices in the Blyde estate is probably going to fall between 10 and 25%. Again, I can't prove this, but again, from my experience, I can surmise that that's probably what's going to happen. And the reason for that is very simple. You can't sell the properties. Nobody wants to buy the properties because the levies are very high, and the beach has got a lot of maintenance that it needs to do. Do I believe that they've probably done like all of the due diligence? I think they have. But again, in my experience, I know that you cater for things in your 10-year maintenance plan, and guess what? Things doesn't work out like that. I'm thinking some of the flats where I own places, and some of the places where I am the head of the board of trustees, and I'm seeing invoices coming in which we didn't plan for. Now, obviously, we did put a little bit of a contingency fund on the side, and we know that, listen, for crisis, we've got the money, which is great, but it's just that it's a bit difficult, right? It really just is not as easy as saying, okay, we're just going to take some money from somewhere. So, do I think that, there's problems at the Blyde? Absolutely. Do I think I want to invest there? Absolutely not. But I do think that we need to be cognizant of the fact that if a developer owns a majority share in a block of flats, I would not want to invest there personally. I'd be very careful to invest there because I just don't necessarily believe that they would always have the interest of all of the owners at heart. I just cannot believe that, because they have the power to veto any decision that is made. So, that is my opinion about when one person owns the majority in a sectional title scheme, what to do, what you can do, what you should avoid, and just a little bit about the Blyde and what my opinion is about them moving forward. Now that you know a little bit more about that, have a wonderful day. Happy investing.